Welcome back to the Metabolic Compass podcast, where we recalibrate your biology and rediscover your direction. I'm your host, Brandon Soika, and today we're diving deep into the true drivers of energy, your mitochondria. If you've been feeling tired, foggy, inflamed, or stuck despite doing everything right, this episode will reframe everything you thought you knew about fatigue. Because your mitochondria don't just produce energy, they decide whether your biology should be in repair mode or defense mode. So let's get into it. Let me ask you something that no blood test can answer. What does your energy feel like? Not just how much you have, but how flexible it is. How available it feels when you need it. How quickly you can shift gears from rest to focus, from stress to recovery, from movement to stillness. Because most people think of energy as a volume problem. They assume they're tired because they don't have enough. But what if the real problem is that your energy is just trapped, blocked, misdirected, stuck inside systems that are trying to protect you at the expense of performance? That brings us to the real topic of today's episode, mitochondria. Yes, you've probably heard them called the powerhouse of the cell. But that phrase barely scratches the surface. See, your mitochondria don't just produce energy. They decide how, when, and if energy should be produced at all. They're metabolic air traffic control. They read your environment, your nutrient status, your inflammation levels, your circadian rhythm. And based on that input, they decide, are we refueling growth or shutting things down to survive? So if your mitochondria aren't adaptive, it doesn't matter how good your diet is, how perfect your macros are, how optimized your workout or supplement stack is. If your mitochondria don't feel safe, they don't produce clean energy. They produce inflammatory sparks instead. They leak, they stall, they start a self-perpetuating loop of stress signaling. And you feel it, not just as tired, but as tired plus mood crashes, brain fog, poor recovery, glucose spikes, sensitivity to cold, sleep that doesn't restore, craving for fast fuel, the sense that your tank is never full no matter how much you rest. This isn't about your willpower. It's not about discipline. It's not even about motivation. It's about bioenergetic flexibility. Your mitochondria's ability to shift fuel types, match energy output to demand, and keep your system humming under pressure. And here's the kicker. Most people's mitochondria lose that flexibility decades before they lose capacity. In other words, your body may still have mitochondria, but they're no longer working as a team. They're fragmented, stressed, operating in silos. And that fragmentation doesn't just affect your cells, it affects your whole perception of what your body is capable of. So in today's episode, we're going to look at mitochondria differently, not as a number on a chart, not as a vague energy center, but as a sensor, a system that's constantly deciding what kind of day your biology is going to have. And by the end of this episode, you'll know why fatigue is often not what it seems, how inflammation hijacks mitochondrial signaling, what to look for in your own body to assess mitochondrial drift, and how to start rebuilding flexibility from the inside out. Because this isn't about powering through, it's about restoring the part of your biology that decides when it's even safe to turn the lights on. So let's talk about the loop, the one that traps millions of people in exhaustion, even when they're doing everything right. It's called the mitochondria inflammation loop. And once you understand it, your entire story of fatigue starts to make sense. Here's how it works. Your mitochondria are built to respond to the world. They ramp up when you move, think, eat, or train. And they cool down when you rest or recover. That's flexibility. But when your body is dealing with chronic low-grade inflammation, whether from gut dysfunction, poor sleep, overtraining, blood sugar swings, or unresolved stress, your mitochondria get the signal. Danger might be present. Reduce output. Conserve resources. And what do? They shut down ATP production, the energy currency of your cells, and switch into defense mode. Instead of burning fuel cleanly, they start leaking it. They produce reactive oxygen species, free radicals that aren't bad in moderation, but devastating when chronic. That oxidative stress does two things. One, it damages the mitochondria themselves, making them future energy production even harder. Two, it triggers more inflammation, which tells your immune system, hey, things aren't right in here. And now you've got a leak. Inflammation blocks energy production. Blocked energy production creates more oxidative stress. Oxidative stress signals more inflammation, and around you go. You can't outsleep it. You can't outsupplement it. You can't biohack your way through it until the loop is interrupted. And this is important. Your labs might look fine. You might have normal thyroid levels, normal iron, normal glucose. But deep in the metabolic machinery, your mitochondria are throttled. They're intentionally underproducing, not because they're lazy, but because they're smart. And the symptoms show up exactly how you'd expect when your body's main energy system is stuck in conservation. You crash in the afternoon, even if you sleep 8 hours. You wake up tired, even when your schedule is light. You can't recover after workouts the way you used to. You feel like your system is running heavy, like everything requires more effort. You experience brain fog, not just fatigue, because your neurons rely on mitochondria too. This is what I call invisible energetic debt. You don't see it as a standard report. You might even doubt it's real until you realize your body feels different every time inflammation rises. After a poor night's sleep, after a high sugar or processed meal, after an argument, after an intense workout without recovery. Each of those creates a spike in inflammation that dials down mitochondrial output. And the solution isn't just to reduce inflammation, it's to restore the mitochondria's ability to handle it. Because energy isn't just about avoiding threat, it's about adapting to it. That's what resilient mitochondria do. They don't just produce energy, they decide how to respond to your life. So here's the big shift I want you to make. If you've been blaming yourself for being tired, scattered, or underperforming, if you've been treating it like a mindset issue, if you've been telling yourself to just push harder, maybe it's time you consider this. Your mitochondria aren't failing, they're protecting you. They're asking you to interrupt the loop. And when you do, when you calm the inflammation, feed the system what it needs, and rebuild flexibility, your energy doesn't just return, it transforms. Because now you're just pushing through fatigue. You're resolving the reason it existed in the first place. Let's get out of the textbook for a minute. Because when people hear mitochondrial dysfunction, they assume it's something rare, something genetic, something extreme, something that only shows up in neurology textbooks or worst-case scenarios. But the reality? Most people are experiencing early-stage mitochondrial dysfunction every single day. It just doesn't look like a disease yet. It looks like life, but heavier. So let's get specific. Here's what mitochondrial dysfunction actually feels like. It feels like brain fog that doesn't match your sleep. You got 8 hours, you even went to bed early, but by mid-morning, it feels like someone put a blanket over your thoughts. You can't find words, you reread the same sentence, you miss details. You feel off, but can't explain why. That's not a focus issue, it's a fuel delivery problem. Your brain cells are some of the most energy-hungry cells in the body. When your mitochondria are underperforming, your mental clarity is the first thing to go. It feels like reactive fatigue. One moment, you're fine. The next, you're dragging. It happens after a meal, after a conversation, after sitting in traffic, or reading too many emails. It's like your energy vanishes without warning. This is classic inflexibility. Your mitochondria aren't adapting to the changing demand, and instead of recalibrating, they crash. It feels like emotional volatility. You cry easier, snap faster, feel overwhelmed by things that didn't used to bother you. You're not broken. You're not dramatic. Your brain is underpowered. Because guess what else mitochondria regulate? Neurotransmitter balance. When your cellular energy is low, your brain becomes more reactive, less able to regulate mood, impulse, and emotional tone. And inflammation only amplifies. It feels like cravings you can't explain. You're not undereating. You're not even emotionally eating. But something in your body is chasing fast fuel, sugar, caffeine, salt, carbs. This isn't about willpower. It's your biology looking for a quick energy fix because the mitochondria aren't meeting baseline demand. It feels like sleep that isn't restorative. You fall asleep, you stay asleep, but you wake up flat, heavy, as if your body didn't recover at all. That's because sleep is not just about resting, it's about rebuilding. And rebuilding takes energy. If your mitochondria can't ramp up overnight repair processes, you wake up still in deficit. It feels like poor recovery after movement. Maybe it's a hard lift. Maybe it's just walking the dog. Either way, the next day, you feel like you got hit by something heavier than your actual workout. That's not just delayed onset of muscle soreness, DOMS. That's metabolic lag. Your mitochondria aren't clearing waste efficiently or generating enough ATP to drive repair. So the inflammation lingers, the fatigue lingers, and what should have built resilience now just builds resentment towards your own body. Here's the point. You don't have to be in crisis for your mitochondria to be struggling. You could be working out, eating clean, and still feel like your engine won't turn over the way it used to. That's the quiet side of mitochondrial dysfunction. It's not a crash, it's a drift. A slow, subtle shift into lower output, longer recovery, shorter focus, and more reactive mood. And the danger is that it becomes your new normal. You start saying things like, I guess this is just getting older. Maybe I can't handle stress like I used to. I probably need more sleep or more coffee. I should push harder. Maybe I'm just being lazy. But what if it's none of that? What if the real issue is that your mitochondria are trying to protect you by downshifting everything until the inflammation quiets and the signals stabilize? Because that changes everything. Now, fatigue isn't a flaw, it's a flag, a request, a warning, a clue. And once you start recognizing those clues, you can respond. Not with more effort, but with the kind of support that gets your energy system back online. And that's what we'll explore next. If you've been taught that energy is just about calories in, calories out, or macros, or carb timing, or supplements, it's time to zone out. Because energy is not just about fuel, it's about flexibility. Your mitochondria aren't just little furnaces burning nutrients. They're smart, they're adaptive. They're constantly responding to the context of your life, what you're doing, what you're eating, what you're thinking, and even what time it is. Let me explain. Mitochondrial flexibility means your cells can burn glucose when you need fast fuel, switch to fat when you're at rest or between meals, respond to stress without crashing, ramp up energy in response to movement, cool down when it's time to recover. It's not about more energy, it's about appropriate energy. Energy that matches demand. Energy that shows up when you need it and backs off when you don't. This is what real metabolic health feels like: responsive, resilient, regulated. But here's the catch. Most people today have lost that flexibility. Why? Because our lives are filled with inputs that confuse the mitochondria. We eat around the clock, so mitochondria never learn to switch into fat burning. We sit for longer hours, then jump into high-intensity training with no ramp-up. We use caffeine to push through the day, then collapse at night under blue light and poor sleep. We skip meals, then overeat. We stress constantly, then try to meditate it away for 10 minutes at bedtime. And the mitochondria? They're listening the whole time. And they're confused. They don't know whether to fuel growth, conserve energy, or prepare for a threat. So what do? They freeze. They downshift into survival. They stop switching efficiently between fuels. They get stuck in glucose dependence. And that's when the symptoms creep in. Fatigue, cravings, fog, poor recovery, metabolic stall. Now here's the part that most people miss. You don't rebuild flexibility through more inputs. You rebuild it through rhythm. Because mitochondria don't just run on nutrients, they run on timing. Regular movement windows tell them when to ramp up. Rest periods tell them when to downshift. Fasting or fuel gaps retrain them to burn fat. Cold, heat, and breath work signal resilience. And consistent light-dark cycles reinforce circadian adaptation. This is why people often feel better, not just from supplements or macros, but from structure. Your mitochondria thrive on pattern. They want to know when to work hard and when to recover. And recovery is not a passive state. It's the time when mitochondria repair themselves. It's when you're in deep sleep, when your nervous system is regulated, when inflammation is low. That's when damaged mitochondria get recycled and new efficient ones are built. That process is called mitochondrial biogenesis. It's how you upgrade your cellular engine. And guess what stimulates it? Zone 2 cardio, which is long, low-intensity movement, strength training, cold exposure, intermittent fasting, polyphenols like those found in berries, green tea, and olive oil, certain gut-derived molecules like butyrate. That's right, some of the very same tools we've talked about for the gut and immune health also stimulate mitochondrial flexibility because the system is connected. So if you're looking to rebuild your energy, not just temporarily boost it, don't just ask, what should I eat or what should I take? Start asking, when am I moving? When am I resting? When do I challenge myself? When do I signal to my biology that it's safe to adapt? Because your mitochondria aren't waiting for fuel. They're waiting for feedback. And when you give them the right rhythms, they don't just power your day. They transform your capacity to handle stress, recover faster, think clearer, and live better. So how do you know if your mitochondria are struggling? Not in the textbook sense, not waiting for a diagnosis or a flagged lab result, but in your everyday life. Because the truth is, mitochondrial dysfunction starts quietly. And if you know what to look for, your body will tell you long before a doctor does. Let's walk through the signs. 1, your energy is inconsistent no matter how healthy you live. You might be eating clean, you might be training regularly, you might even be sleeping 7 to 8 hours, but your energy still crashes midday or after meals or during stress. This isn't a fuel problem, it's a flexibility problem. Your mitochondria aren't adapting to demand, they're running flat. 2, you rely on stimulants just to feel baseline. If you need caffeine to wake up and then need more caffeine to push through the afternoon, you're not boosting energy, you're bypassing a signal. This isn't just normal adult life. It's a sign your mitochondria can't match output to daily rhythm, and you're using external force to compensate. 3, you recover slowly from movement or avoid it altogether. A short workout leaves you drained for 2 days. A walk that used to refresh you now feels like effort. Or maybe you're avoiding movement entirely because you intuitively know you won't bounce back the way you used to. This is how mitochondrial drift feels. Not dramatic, just heavier, slower, sticky. 4, your mood changes with your energy. Some days you feel sharp and optimistic. Other days you feel flat, anxious, irritable, or all three. If your mood swings track with your energy patterns, it's a red flag that neuroinflammation is affecting your mitochondrial output. Your brain cells depend on mitochondrial flexibility to maintain stable neurotransmission. 5, you get hit after meals, especially high fat and high carb ones. You eat a balanced meal, then suddenly you're foggy, cold, or tired. This isn't about the food being bad, it's about inefficient fuel handling. Your mitochondria aren't switching cleanly between carb and fat metabolism. So instead of powering up your system backs off. 6, you feel inflamed but don't know why. Your joints ache, your skin flares, you feel puffy, or your weight is creeping up despite your best efforts. This could be mitochondrial oxidative stress. When mitochondria underperform, they release more reactive oxygen species, which the immune system reads as damage, even when there's no external injury. 7, you feel like you're running at 70%, even on your best days. You're not sick, but you're not well. You're not broken, but you're not whole. You're just not yourself. That feeling that I know I could be sharper, lighter, more responsive, but I'm not. That's often the earliest sign of mitochondrial underperformance. Now, if any of these sound familiar, don't panic. This isn't about fear. It's about recognition. Because the earlier you spot these signs, the easier they are to correct. Mitochondria are remarkably adaptable. Once you stop fighting them and start supporting them, and here's what I want you to know. Take a moment and reflect. When does your energy crash? When does your mood shift? What inputs leave you feeling worse even when they should help? Do you feel more reactive than resilient? These patterns matter. They're your compass. Because mitochondria don't just produce energy, they reflect your alignment. And when your energy is off, it's not random, it's directional. Your biology is asking for you to recalibrate. And in the next segment, we'll talk about how. Because your mitochondria are listening, and with the right signals, they remember exactly how to respond. If your energy has felt inconsistent, if your recovery has slowed down, if you've checked every box and still feel stuck, you don't need more hustle. You need to rebuild mitochondrial flexibility. But how do you actually do that? So let's start here. 1. Prioritize rhythm before intensity. Before we talk cold plunges, fasting, or even zone 2 training, let's get back to the foundation, timing. Mitochondria don't just respond to nutrients. They respond to when you move, when you eat, and when you sleep. If your days are chaotic, eating at random hours, skipping rest, training late at night, your mitochondria stay confused. They don't know when to ramp up and when to repair. So give your body a predictable rhythm. Wake and sleep at consistent times. Anchor meals around movement. Create recovery windows. Let your biology know when and what to expect. That rhythm builds trust, and trust builds adaptability. 2. Introduce hormetic stressors slowly. Your mitochondria grow stronger when gently challenged. That's the concept of hormesis, the idea that small doses of stress build resilience. Here's how to train that system. Zone 2 cardio, which is low intensity, longer duration. Fasting windows like 14 hours overnight with ease, not force. Cold exposure. Start with 30 seconds at the end of a shower. Heat therapy. Saunas or hot baths to trigger heat shock proteins. Breath work. Slow exhales, breath holds, vagal tone activation. These inputs don't burn you out. They whisper to your mitochondria, you're strong enough for this. That whisper is what triggers mitochondrial biogenesis, the process of building new, more efficient mitochondria. 3. Feed the engine, but don't overload it. Your mitochondria are like tiny engines. They burn fuel, but too much of the wrong kind clogs the system. Support them with clean inputs, unprocessed carbs like root veggies, legumes, oats, and fruit. Healthy fats like olive oil, avocado, nuts, seeds. Anti-inflammatory polyphenols, berries, greens, herbs, green tea. Adequate protein. Mitochondria rely on amino acids for repair. Key minerals, especially magnesium, zinc, selenium, and CoQ10. But equally important, don't flood the engine. Overeating, especially in a stressed or inflamed state, can swamp mitochondria with more substrate than they can handle. Give your body time to clear. Let space between meals become a training window, not a punishment. 4. Support the gut mitochondria axis. Your gut doesn't just digest food. It produces signals that retrain your mitochondria. One of the most powerful? Butyrate. We've talked about this in previous episodes, but it bears repeating. Butyrate isn't just for gut repair. It travels systemically, reducing inflammation, activating mitochondrial repair genes, and improving insulin sensitivity. You can support butyrate production through prebiotic fibers like oats, lentils, green bananas, and onions, resistant starches like cooked and cooled potatoes or rice, targeted butyrate supplementation such as Biomend, if appropriate. And if you've been stuck in fatigue, adding butyrate support may be one of the fastest ways to quiet inflammation and wake up your mitochondria again. 5. Make recovery a stimulus, not a luxury. Here's the most underrated truth about energy. You don't build it while performing. You build it while recovering. Sleep is not passive. It's when your mitochondria rebuild. It's when cellular cleanup kicks in. It's when oxidative stress gets neutralized. If you're skipping deep rest, mentally or physically, you're skipping the very window when energy is rebuilt. So instead of trying to earn recovery, start designing your life around it. Go to bed before midnight. Take short movement breaks instead of long sedentary blocks. Build in 5 minutes after stress to regulate your nervous system. Turn recovery into a practice, not a reward. You don't need to fix everything overnight, but if you do one thing this week, do this. Choose one signal that tells your mitochondria you're safe, you can move, you're allowed to adapt again. That could be a 20-minute walk after breakfast, or adding more magnesium, or skipping snacks between meals to create space, or simply going to bed on time for 3 nights in a row. Small inputs, big rewiring. Because flexibility is built in micro moments, not mega hacks. And when your mitochondria feel the shift, they remember what they were built to do. Okay, so let's bring this full circle. If you felt stuck in low energy, inconsistent mood, poor recovery, or that frustrating, I'm doing everything right, but I still don't feel right pattern, now you know why. It's not because you're broken. It's not because you're weak. It's not because you lack motivation. It's because your mitochondria are responding appropriately to a system that hasn't felt safe enough to be flexible. We've spent this episode unpacking what mitochondria actually do, not just produce energy, but read the environment, respond to inputs, match energy to demand. Decide when to conserve and when to move. Choose whether you adapt or you just endure. And that means your mitochondria are more than just little power plants. They're mirrors. They reflect the story your body is living. And when you feel flat, reactive, foggy, or drained, it's not a failure of effort. It's a feedback loop that needs interrupting. The beauty of this system is that it's reversible. You don't have to overhaul your life. You just have to start sending the right signals. Rhythmic inputs, clean movement, time to recover, mitochondrial nutrients, and maybe butyrate to rebuild communication from the gut outward. Because resilience isn't built in burnout. It's built in rhythm. In the micro moments where your body feels safe enough to shift from conserve to create. And when that happens, you don't just get more energy, you become more adaptable. You stop crashing when life throws a curveball. You recover faster, think clearer, move with less friction. You stop fearing your own energy system and start partnering with it. Now, next episode, we take this even deeper. Because episode 7 is about something almost no one talks about, but everyone needs to understand. Redox balance. That word, redox, might sound technical, but it's simple. It's how your body decides, should I use this energy or protect against the stresses it creates? Redox is the tightrope walk between making energy and managing oxidative stress. When that balance tips the wrong way, your mitochondria burn dirty, your inflammation rises, your aging accelerates, and your system starts breaking down at the cellular level, even if everything else looks fine. We'll break it all down next episode so you can stop guessing and start recalibrating the way your body was meant to. But for now, take this with you. Energy isn't something you earn. It's something your biology is wired to produce when it feels ready. And you hold the compass to make that readiness possible. Your mitochondria already know how to adapt. They just need the invitation. You've been listening to the Metabolic Compass podcast, where we bridge cutting-edge science with real-life application to help you reclaim your health, one directional shift at a time. To learn more, visit us at www.themetaboliccompass.com or follow us on Instagram and TikTok at The Metabolic Compass. And if you haven't already, leave a review. It helps others find their way back to alignment too. Recalibrate your biology, rediscover your direction.